Hey, Troy.
Rex? Hey, Rex? I think I'm on.
You're on, Susan. We can
Okay.
see you.
Okay.
Let's see, we have one.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Susan. You look like a movie star.
Oh, I love you, Dr. Tron. You are just
I'm
so
gonna turn
amazing.
my volume up, Rex.
You turn it up.
Yeah, I don't.
See this right here, this knob?
Oh, okay, great.
Susan Tran. Did you get contact with Marianne Hilliers? Is she on now? Oh, no. I couldn't hear you. You hit the button. Linda.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but Linda's her microphone is mute. Linda.
Hey, Lynn, you're muted. There you go.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Loud and
Okay,
clear.
great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Marion sent a text that she was launching screen for a while.
No, they've been on the phone with her. They supposedly have it figured out.
Good.
I don't, she needs to click on the, let me try to call her.
IT is ready to go if you are ready to start the meeting.
What? Do we need to worry any more people or this it? Any more on EDC?
Mayor, I believe Rex is trying to contact Marion.
Yes. And Ricky, is he on? Ricky Brown?
Yes, sir.
I didn't see him. Okay.
So I don't.
Okay, now.
We are not in a hurry, but.
I hear Marion.
Hi,
There she is.
There she is.
Hi, Lynn.
Hey.
Hi, Marion.
Hi. Maybe everybody can hear me now.
Yay, I see you, Marion.
There's
How many we need for EDC? I only see 3 of us on here.
Hey, Brent.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Good.
So we can't see everybody at one time. Is that correct?
Go to
Unless we
gallery
push that
view.
arrow to the right. Okay, I see.
I see 4 of us now. Okay.
There's arrows right and left, I guess, at the top of that screen. And if you
at the top
push
of
the
the
arrows,
at the top
you
of
can
the
see the
screen,
rest of the people.
if at the top of the screen, if you hit gallery view, it'll just put everybody on the screen.
Oh, thank you.
Where's that at, Troy? Gallery view.
Top
It's
right.
like looks like a checkerboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
On this situation, when I pray, I think everybody can sit down, right? Because if you stand up, we can see your face. I think God knows that.
I don't know what's going on with Rex, but I don't know what we're seeing of him. There he is.
Stand by.
When did Greg become Gay Van Zant?
Uh-oh.
That's a good one. We'll switch names all around.
Yeah. Council Proud, do you have enough people on your EDC?
Of course, Mr. Grow, Mr. Weast, Troy Dunn, and I saw where Darren Hudson was trying to click in, but I'm not sure he's in yet. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. That's all we need, isn't it?
I have a question.
Go ahead, you are free.
So Greg has a name underneath him and it's muted and it says Gay Van Zant.
I don't know why Greg have Gay Van Zant name in there.
She's gonna fix it.
Now
Doris-
it's changed.
That's
There we go.
because
It just changed.
It's already
Yeah.
fixed.
great minds think alike, right, Greg?
Okay,
Okay,
now
and then here's my other question. Are we supposed to have ourselves muted unless we're ready to speak? Because Jason Clonch is muted, Troy Dunn is muted, Brent Weist is muted, Walter Groh is muted.
It's
Trent
preferable.
Petty- Anyway,
It is preferable, especially because a lot of people
Thank you.
tend to have a lot of background noises and it just causes feedback and interference.
like dogs barking. Yeah, got
Yes.
it. Okay, thank you.
are we ready? Right? You have enough people now? Or?
I think we're ready.
Yeah, you're at 6:05, Mayor.
Yeah. At this time, 6:05 p.m. on April 9th, I call the joint meeting between the council and the EDC member in order. At first, I would do invocation. Please bow your head. My God, my healer, be present now to people who need your loving touch because of COVID-19. May they feel your power of healing through the care of doctors and nurses. As more people get sick, healthcare workers and first responders are working longer hours with fewer supply and with more risk of contracting the new coronavirus themselves. Renew their energy and sustain them on long shift. Bring your protection upon them as they work with patients. Help the research doctors developing better tests to diagnose the virus. Create vaccine to prevent it and identify protocol to eliminate the disease spread. Dear Lord, we lift to you our concern for people who are more likely than others to become severely ill from COVID-19, the elderly and the people with chronic health conditions. Protect them from harm and be their comfort in this time of uncertainty, and for many, prevent the isolation from loved ones. Take away the fear, anxiety, and feeling of isolation from people receiving treatment or under quarantine. Give them a sense of purpose in pursuing health and protecting them other from exposed to the disease. Protect their family and friends and bring peace to all you love them. We thank you for looking down from your holy haven, for hearing the groaning of this prisoner of this disease. When fear surrounding us, we look to you, our miracle working Savior. Our faith in you has no borders. Please grant deliverance from this deadly disease and bless us with the fullness of health. Help us overcome any vestige of unbelief and purify our faith so that we can learn on you in firm confidence that you will heal us to the glory of my Savior. Our faith will strongly persist in prayer until your answer comes. There is nothing you cannot do. We come to you now, desperate for a healing miracle. I believe that you are going to do this to the glory of Jesus' name. I pray that you guide us on ways satisfy the need that need to be met during this meeting tonight. Strengthen us as we make tough decisions. At this moment, I would like to say something to John Williams, the former council and the board member for Harlem City for many Yes. To John, I am sorry about your loss. As a mayor, council, and our staff, we miss you. Thank you for being a good citizen. Thank you for many years of service. And board members, God bless you. Wish you stay in peace in heaven. We will get through this together. God bless America. God bless Hampton City. Amen. Okay. The next one, I would like to introduce our council member. When I introduce you, put your hand up so people can see. Are you okay? We have Mayor Pro Tem Council Linda Thompson. Place number 1, Council Marianne Hilliers. And number 2, Walter Grove. Number 3, Mayor Pro Tem number 4, Brand Weiss. And number 5, Susan Saul. Can you hear me? Okay. Number 6, Ricky Proud, also a chairman of the EDC. And the last one, number 7, Mr. Gay Van Zandt. Okay. At this time, I would like to say thank you to all of you be here tonight in difficult time. You know, usually we are sitting together, look at each other, but for this situation, we have to work the best we can. Thank you, Rick Farrell, Shidana Falls, and our staff, especially IT, to set up this meeting. Everything so far looked good. I hope the citizen out there can see the same thing we are seeing right now. Thank you for the volunteer, the police, the fire, the staff, especially the public work. You know, they're out there sweeping the street. This morning, I ran around the town, delivery food, and I saw a lot of people working with happy face. That's very good. And especially thank you to Bobby Arthur. She done a very good job, very hard with the support from our city manager and your staff. And I'll also thank you, your staff to Bobby Arthur. And the people, the driver, delivery food, that's include me. I'm always there when I have time. And as a mayor, I will be there. Doesn't matter what condition. If somebody can be there, I will be there. By the way, one more time, I would like to ask everybody coming up the Easter celebration, do at home, celebrate with friends on the Zoom, and try to, the best thing we need to do is social distancing, okay? Look at American people, take this not seriously, this illness. That's why we are the best country in the world about medical. But now we are #1 country, have more people have the disease and more death in the world. Look at, we need to learn a lesson right now. I'll come to I run around the town and many park before we close. You know, the people still sit together, just like picnic, you know. That's not right. Please listen to me. Social distancing save your life. Save our life and save our city. Thank you, and make sure wear masks. And you know, you look good with masks. Even you don't look good, you have mask, you look better. Okay, and good luck, everyone. Be safe, very important. Thank you, Rex. And at this moment, I would like to introduce the chairman of the EDC, Council Member Ricky Brown. Would you come on air and introduce your member present tonight, please, sir? Thank you.
Yes, I will. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Strong. Thank you very much. And I would like, before I go much further, I think I just hit my camera here, to the IT department, Dave, David, Laura, gosh, to a computer dummy like myself, I don't know what I would do without these folks. They have been just fabulous in pulling this all together so that we can continue to watch out for the city. At this time, members of the EDC board that are present. Troy Dunn, thank you. My fellow council members, Walter Grove, Brent Weiss. I would like to recognize the other members just in case they're on. Like I was last week, I could not hear, but I could see what was going on. But anyway, thanks to Gary Blocker, Darren Hudson, and Don Jury. Thanks everyone. And again, special thanks to Laura and Dave and David and IT for helping us get this far. Rex, at this time, I guess I would like to turn it over to you.
Go ahead, Fred.
Sure. Thank you very much. The purpose of this meeting tonight is for a workshop. It's not to make decisions or vote tonight, but to hear from Catalyst Commercial the work that they've been doing for us. I would like to remind the council and EDC and of course educate the audience that we'd actually contracted with Catalyst Commercial well before this is at the end of last year, well before we had any idea that this COVID-19 crisis was going to hit us. And by the time that the COVID crisis did come along, Catalyst Commercial had completed or substantially completed most of their work. So, we are going to hear what they have to say tonight. Now, mostly what they have been contracted to do is to come up with a market activation plan for our Loop 820. As a reminder of where we were before this COVID-19 hit, we were seeing more development in Haltom, either happening or about to happen, than we've ever seen, at least in any recent memory. And with the 72-acre business park, the Marriott's, the 2 new neighborhoods, the luxury multifamily, and so forth, and there's other ones too. And the good news is that at least at this point, all of them are moving forward. So we're hoping that we do get a rebound economically pretty quickly, but everybody understands that a recovery sometimes takes longer than a rebound. But anyway, so that's what this is about. So this is still very important. It's still very much needed, and we'll be in a better shape because of this moving forward, because all this development that I talked about will be a catalyst for other development. And we just want to make sure that we get the highest and best use as we move forward on that corridor that's going to be an economic engine for this city. So that's kind of where we were, where we are, and where we hope to be. And so Catalyst is going to help us get to where we're striving to be. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce Jason Clonch from Catalyst Commercial, but I did want to remind everybody, since this is electronic, since we're not in the room together, and we lose a little bit because of that, if you would, let's let Jason get through his presentation. I think he's got 2 or 3 different exhibits to show us. Let's let him get through those. And if you have a question, I would ask you to kind of just jot it down or come back to it when he's done, and we can have a good discussion with questions and answers and get some input from the council and the EDC. But it might be better if we do that than if we tried to ask a bunch of questions in the middle of this, just because it's a little disjointed when you're an electronic meeting like this. So with that, let me also say Trent Petty is he's on board here tonight too. There he is waving, and Trent is our economic development consultant. So he'll probably have some things to say a little bit later after Jason and get involved in the conversation as well, just about economic development in general. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jason Clonch.
Rex, thank you, Mayor, Council, EDC. It's an honor and pleasure to be in front of you again. And I really appreciate you taking the time to spend your evening with us. I'm excited to present, I think, some of the findings that we've had following the workshop and the number of conversations that we've had with a majority of the property owners within the district. To set the tone, if you remember, Trent and I and Rex and the staff were discussing viable options for the EDC property. And I asked the question just about how is the entire district being promoted, and recognized that there would be a great opportunity of coalescing a unified vision for the district from a marketing purpose that would not only increase the value for the EDC property, but it could also help foster interest and gain more of a regional perspective because there's been a lot of work that's been done, obviously, through the infrastructure on the reconstruction of 820 and the service roads, but also you guys have spent a lot of investment with TxDOT's help and other partnerships, really creating some fantastic branding within the district. And we saw that as a great opportunity to help sort of raise the game for the entire district. So I've got a very brief PowerPoint. And then we've taken some of the market work and the conversations and packaged some information up on the district. So I wanted to share with you a draft of that. And then at the end, I'd like to play a short video that hopefully coalesce this that can be used as an outreach tool to future prospects for not only the EDC property, but really Haltom City as a whole, but also help promoting the Northern District as it's being called. So thank you, Laura. So what we're talking about is really creating a unified approach for the Catalyst area activation. And when I think about the Catalyst area, it's not only the EDC property, but really all the remaining vacant land. I know a lot of this is in play and we'll get into that, but this is really creating a unified approach, a unified messaging maybe for the entire Northern Cross District. Next slide. So when we started this process, we were really tasked with identifying those key catalyst sites. We also want to help, we'll talk about this certainly during this recovery mode, but how to link the land use policy with an economic development strategy and perhaps tie in some updated regulations just to make sure that that there's actually regulations and policies to really go along with the vision. This key is to support initiatives that can help attract private investment. That's already occurring, but we want to continue to foster that. Certainly in this environment, we want to make sure that that new investment is also resilient and sustainable. And then, part of this was creating some scenarios on the EDC property to identify what makes sense, how to merchandise that in a way, if you want to think about it from that perspective, and then ultimately create some tools for active outreach. And then part of this exercise was taking a look at the entire district and how can we understand the complexity of all the different uses that are occupied within the district, but integrate a new mix of uses that can help vibrancy and create more experience and livability by coalescing sort of all the different developments under one umbrella and one vision. So next slide. I think the most important thing, and this slide actually has more meaning now, but with quality design and activation, that creates more value. And when you have more value, that allows you to reinvest in your community. That allows you to reinvest in infrastructure and other quality of life projects, which should help continue to promote the district and promote the city. And so we think about that as a virtuous cycle so that these things can kind of work, interplay among themselves and continue to build. What you don't want is a vicious cycle that when you start making decisions and that starts to lower the value, and those are very difficult to sort of unravel. And so our goal in this was to look for opportunities to really create and enhance the virtuous cycle that exists in Haltom City, and it's especially within the Northern Cross District. Next slide. So I want to give you a highlight of just some summary information in terms of the market that we found to help sort of substantiate or drive some of the thinking that we've been doing. And so as part of that process, we spent a lot of time in the field looking at those catalyst sites. We spent a lot of time interviewing the property owners within the district. We talked to McRae and LGE, Carmali, Stephen Barnes. We had a great conversation with David Weekly, John Pitstick. We talked to Mercantile. We talked to Alexis Event Venue and a number of the operators that are coming into the district or have invested in the district. We also spent some time meeting with staff. If you remember, it's been a while, but we had a workshop where we discussed some ideas and opportunities and wanted to make sure that we understood some of the goals from staff and council and EDC perspective. That was an open house meeting, so we had a lot of public participants as well as that. And then that allowed us to start to create some preferred scenarios for some of the catalyst properties. Next slides. So in looking at the district, if you think about the district and where it's situated, there's over 3.7 million people that work in and around the area, and there's over 100,000 people coming to North Texas annually. If you look at the market shed, this area, because of its location, has access to over 7.5 million people, and that's increasing by 1,000 residents per day with the recent job growth and the new migration that's happened within the state. And then if you just think about the opportunity, there's also 25 million visitors in North Texas. So they're looking for places to work and eat and ultimately perhaps make a choice to live one day. And so this could be an opportunity for entertainment or mixed use or something that could cater to that audience as well. So one of the issues that we understood from some of the takeaways that Northern Cross, while it had some branding, I think regionally it may have had a lack of identity. I wasn't aware of the Northern Cross District until we engaged with the city. Although it had great branding and the infrastructure was in place. And we also recognize there's not a lot of retail on the district. I know that's changing. There's some retail at Beach and 820 on the northeast corner. And there's some additional hospitality and retail coming, but there's a lot of retail leakage when you consider the amount of wallet share that Haltom City as a whole has and the amount of money that's being spent outward versus inward. And so we wanted to see if this is an opportunity to reverse that circumstance. Obviously, this is a very auto-oriented location with the position on the freeway, but is there an opportunity to create some ideas that could create and foster maybe more walkability or maybe better connectivity from the library and some of the adjacent neighborhoods where this site and the other sites could be interconnected. And a lot of the sidewalks and infrastructure in place, it wouldn't take a lot to connect that. But one thing we would want to do is just reduce dependency on the automobile while we recognize that people still are going to maybe drive from a destination if this is executed correctly. And then really one of the things that we also noticed is there's a lot of properties, but they don't all really work together. They're sort of disconnected. They're all working on different development schemes. And even a lot of the infrastructure or branding isn't cohesive. So we don't expect everybody to have their own business plan. But if there was ideas to link maybe a landscaping strategy or an infrastructure strategy that could benefit all people, and certainly a branding strategy could make a huge difference when promoting the district, even to future employees and some of the business parks or hospitality guests, where this starts to have a name and identity of its own. And then if you just look at the characteristics, there's a broad range of demographics in the area. You've got new young families on the north side. You've got existing stable neighborhoods on the south side. You've got a lot of employment sort of within the middle along the district. And so part of the complexity is how do you link all this together and create some sort of cohesiveness and common theme. And I'd mentioned the lack of synergy and gravity between some of the uses. And then underutilized real estate, some of the vacant land, obviously you want to make sure that it is developed, as Rex said, in the highest and best use, but underutilized real estate certainly contributes to economic loss. And so we wanted to look at what can create the highest economic output from the city's perspective and yield, and how can we guide that going forward. And that's difficult when you have fragmented ownership and multiple properties, and we respect individual property rights. How can you create this unified vision when you have a lot of different fragmented ownership? And that is one of the challenges. And then how can you create a unified vision? Because everybody's got really a different business plan that they're sort of working within. Next slide. So this is really a highlight of the general Catalyst sites. Most of the sites that we looked at fronted at 820. When we started this process, we really did extend the geography for the study area all the way from Beach to essentially the city limits on the east over past 377. But this gives you an idea of the original Catalyst area, and that included the EDC property that was just north of the library. Next slide. So as part of this journey, we spent a lot of time looking at market demand. We produced a market analysis that's much deeper than this that would be available to the public and also the staff. But we really looked at the retail demand, what sort of velocity is already occurring, how much development is already occurring, what sort of estimated rents can we think we could achieve, what would the annual absorption look like across different product types, and how much is being absorbed historically. What we found out is there's certainly demand because of the leakage for retail. The retail here would need to be destination oriented, only because traditional uses might prefer to gravitate further north to Alliance or over by the mall if there was areas of opportunity, just because there's already concentration of retail, and a lot of retail prefers to stay near other retail. So we know that the retail would need to be destination, but there is substantial demand for retail at this location. One of the things we also recognize is this site, because of its visibility and the identity and the infrastructure, could cater to corporate office. It would make sense for an engineering firm or professional firm, or even a mix of businesses. It would not be obscure to think that this could cater to maybe a future location for somebody's corporate office, or even a mix of uses, including office. We know intuitively that the area's got activity regarding industrial. That's fairly prominent, certainly to the south and to the west, along Beach Street. And then Haltom City has a substantial amount of industrial and a lot of talent that can cater to a broad amount of industrial and manufacturing and distribution uses. And our analysis really proved the same. There's a lot of capacity for industrial for those uses within the district. The key is how do you cater to industrial on smaller fragmented sites, and how can you create uses around industrial that make sense. And then we also explored multifamily, and we know that there's the multifamily performance has been very strong. We spent a lot of time talking to interested parties and groups like Stephen Barnes that have projects underway, and we know that there would be definitely demand for additional multifamily. And so we wanted to explore all of this to give us a broad range of really product to play with. Next slide. So I want to show you, and again, these are what I would call concepts. These aren't final designs. These are really what I would consider illustrations of some of the principles that we identified in the workshop and some of the things that we've heard. But this will help you maybe think through, from a land use perspective, maybe how some of these tracks could be laid out, and maybe how they might be developed to give us an indication of how to analyze these going forward. So one of the things that we explored is that corporate scenario. If this could be a location where you could accommodate 2 or 3 buildings and then have smaller office space or flex space around that, what would that look like? What would the orientation be? How could we maintain, really good relationship to the existing streets, but create an internal block structure that might work? And so this is an example of that scenario. In this, we did assume, and again, it's an assumption, that maybe the self-storage on the corner might be integrated in this design. Obviously, that would be something that would have to be negotiated, and that may or may not be a possibility, but we wanted to include that in terms of the art of the possible so that we could kind of explore what working with the entire block might look like. Next slide. And then we also explored a retail and restaurant and entertainment scenario. This one we explored, maybe there was a need for a new civic facility. A lot of developments are being anchored around civic uses. That could be a new city hall or a police facility, or just it could just be a sports and entertainment facility. It doesn't necessarily have to be publicly owned. And then we integrated additional retail concepts. And then to maximize the utilization of the site, we created an opportunity, or at least a placeholder, for maybe a structured garage in the future to accommodate more program. Again, I think that may be aggressive in the first phase, but again, you could see the way this is laid out that any of these developments could essentially grow and develop over time incrementally, where maybe 1 or 2 buildings could develop over time. And if all this developed out, you may need additional parking. And so we thought about things like that. Next slide. And then we also looked at maybe that urban residential scenario where we included a mix of urban residential apartments, but we also included some retail and perhaps some additional mix of uses that could be integrated in that. And that could be office, And that could include retail or office, maybe with residential above. This is a little bit more dense. And again, this also would include maybe an option for a structured garage. It's just a concept. Again, I think, based on this condition with COVID, retail may be challenging, and integrating these uses in the same business plan may be a little bit more difficult today. But depending on the timing of the development and the rest of the implementation, this could be certainly something that could be considered over time. Next slide. So one of the things that we spent a little bit more time on was working up the restaurant and entertainment scenario. This would be, again, destination driven. But what we included, I've spent some time, there's a concept in Kansas that is oriented around pickleball, which was fun. It caters to both young and older residents. And so we've got a main building that's got some pickleball courts and some outdoor entertainment areas. And then, the rest of that could be framed up with restaurants and other destination entertainment, or maybe some traditional retail to help cater and provide some additional amenities to the residents. And also could serve as a regional destination for some of the workforce. Again, this is one just concept. We have not promoted or marketed any one of these scenarios, but this was a little bit more of a refinement and a block structure, based on that restaurant entertainment scenario. So I think in terms of next steps, one of the things that we would do is analyze these scenarios and maybe the refined scenarios to get an understanding of one, some of the factors, but also the fiscal impact to help drive the future decision making. So you could see what is the ad valorem and the sales tax that can be generated from some of these different scenarios. That would be a fairly easy exercise to help maybe guide the process going forward. We would also, in this environment, want to sort of stress test these concepts for resiliency and sustainability. There's going to be some industries that are going to fare very well through this recovery, and there's going to be some uses that may struggle and take a little bit longer to come back. And so, depending on the time horizon, we would want to make sure that we stress test any future ideas to make sure that they would be resilient and sustainable, certainly in the near-term recovery. We would also want to develop a strategy for implementation. What is the timing? What is the developer capacity? If we started doing interviews, we would want to make sure that any interested party had a balance sheet and was capable of executing, because that's going to be very important as banks require a little bit more scrutiny. The good news is interest rates are lowering, but the requirements for equity is increasing. And so we'd certainly want to pay attention to those metrics, and then their ability to certainly perform. And that would include any operator or developer. We'll show you in a second a marketing tool and then a video. I think this is a great opportunity to start messaging and advocating for the district and promoting the district as a brand, and start to build advocacy to a very specific target audience. This is a really good time to be thinking and planning and refining and going to market. I think this will allow you to be a little bit more selective, but we're actually still seeing quite a bit of development velocity and activity. There's been a lot of capital on the sidelines waiting for this opportunity because prices in the area, in the Metroplex, has been extremely high. And so I think people are starting to become opportunistic. You guys don't need to do that because you already own the property. You could essentially structure it in a way that would be a win-win with a public-private partnership. But I think it's a good time to make sure that that this opportunity is known. And then the second part, we really began that conversation in terms of next steps. But what are the policies and tools that need to be overlaid for the EDC property and the district to protect the vision and really the optimization going forward for all remaining tracks? Is there an opportunity? Do we need to tweak the codes or maybe dial up the codes and the regulations just to make sure that all this work and thought and process that's been done, make sure that gets executed correctly with the right regulations and policies to help foster this as well. So before we play the video, can we flip through the next marketing piece just as a quick highlight of really a summary of what we've aggregated so far? Thank you. I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. I think many of you have received a hard copy, and we will provide electronic versions of this as well. Eventually, this is something that could be distributed to maybe an interested prospect or a target going forward from an economic development standpoint. But really, this is a really good summary of both available sites and some of the market information in a condensed format. So next slide. Next slide. So we put together essentially some information about Haltom City, its position in the location. We put together a high resolution aerial for the entire city that could be used for economic development purposes. We started framing in the market needs for retail, office, and industrial and urban residential. And then with the next part really is outlining the available properties or some of the catalyst areas. Next slide. So again, just some information about both Haltom City and the Northern Cross District, just, very, very high level snapshot. Again, just its position and really proximity to some really great assets. You can get to Fort Worth in a matter of minutes. You can get to, DFW Airport from this location in a number of minutes, and also Love Field, but also really the entire Metroplex because of the express and the infrastructure that's in place. And again, just a locator map for those that aren't aware of where the Northern Cross District sits within the city limits, but also within the region. This is a great reference for perspective. And then again, we put together an aerial map showing the geography for the Northern Cross District and some of the drivers. So, access to the Tex Rail and access to 820 and the frontage road, and really some of the traffic counts within the area. Again, these are good, base information for prospective users. And again, just a summary of the area, just the magnitude of the amount of vehicles and the amount of talent base that surrounds this district. And then we also started framing up the activity of what projects are underway and how this fits in with all the regional activity. So this gives you an idea of all the retail currently under construction, and the fact that this district was really in the middle of all that activity. And then just some general statistics about the market absorption, the vacancy rate, the sales per square foot, some of the market cap rates that we're seeing in the area for perspective to help underwrite any retail opportunities. And again, we did the same thing for industrial. As I've mentioned, certainly to the west and the south, there's a lot of industrial already in existence, but a substantial amount of industrial is currently underway within the region. And again, some stats under industrial, very low vacancy rate, really unprecedented performance in terms of market rent, and an unbelievable amount of inventory is getting currently built. So again, all great indicators from an industrial standpoint. And we did the same exercise in office. Obviously, there's not as much office construction as the other two products, but there is a substantial amount of activity within the region. So we wanted to highlight that this could be an opportunity for a place or a destination for office. Again, not as much absorption, but again, strong market rents, very favorable cap rates, and then and very favorable economics. The absorption rate hasn't been as aggressive. There's been more office space that's coming online or vacancy prior to this. So again, the fundamentals aren't quite as strong as office. But then very favorable, and certainly any jewel box opportunity, any user that really preferred to have the visibility could make that choice anyway. And then multifamily, there's a lot of activity in terms of multifamily in Tarrant County. So this gives you an idea of the magnitude of urban residential, and including the stuff that's being currently planned and are underway on the north side of 820 within the district. And then the fundamentals for urban residential are extremely strong. The cap rates are, again, extremely low, which places a high amount of value for multifamily. The vacancy rate is, again, very healthy. The economics per unit is very favorable to foster construction. And so, multifamily is one of those that has some very strong fundamentals in the marketplace. So I want to go through and we'll sort of just flip through some of the catalyst areas. Next map. This gives you an idea. We really underwrote all 11 catalyst areas. This is the majority of the undeveloped property within the district. That includes the EDC property, the Mercantile, Carmali's piece, the property Stephen Barnes has, and some of the adjacent properties that are within this district. So again, site number one, this would be an example of maybe a illustrative or concept for the Mercantile piece, and just framed in some information regarding that tract. Site two, so this is really the McCrae piece and the properties that LGE is under development. This gives you an idea of where that's located. Site number three, again, is the adjacent piece. It's the extension of what LGE is working on. Site four is across the way from the EDC properties. That's at the southwest corner of Haltom and 820. A little bit smaller, but serves as an important gateway. And site five also serves as really a prominent gateway into the Northern Cross District. A little bit smaller, so in terms of catering. Site six is the 2 acres that's next to the new Holiday Inn. And then site seven is the EDC property. And again, we dropped in that concept that would show the entertainment district, showing just one possibility for development. Site eight is the small piece that's across the railroad track right before you get to Denton Highway that's available that the EDC owns. And then site nine is that northeast corner. That's the site next to Quick Trip and Racetrack that's got the 2 hotels planned and additional retail. And again, site 11 would be just immediately east of that. And then site 11 would be the property that's just south of the Stephen Barnes urban residential and the David Weekley project that's underway. And then this is kind of the back cover. All of this comes together and creates a booklet. I hope many of you have had a chance to get a draft of that. We've made a couple of tweaks since we've distributed that, but again, that gives you a good feel of the deliverable that could be emailed out, distributed to prospects or just people that might be interested in the district. And if you want to switch, if we've got time, let's play the video. Thank you for multitasking.
Haltom City is strategically located in northeast Tarrant County between Fort Worth and Dallas, Texas. Haltom City has a current population of 45,000 residents and over 1,300 businesses.
The thing about Haltom City from an economic development standpoint is its location is what I consider a prime location. It's north central Tarrant County. We draw from a large workforce from not just in our city, but from all over. We're just minutes from DFW Airport and downtown Fort Worth and the Alliance Town Center area. All the sports venues, everything's right here.
The Northern Cross is a district containing over 1,588 acres and serves as a northern gateway to Haltom City. The district is located in the northern part of the city with over 2 miles of frontage along Interstate 820.
820 Exchange we're working on is close to 1 million square foot industrial project, business park, also includes retail. And for us, we wanted something that was infill, when in comparison to Alliance and other submarkets. And Haltom had, the perfect site.
The Haltom City real estate market is the percentage of value growth that's occurred in Haltom City and North Tarrant County has been a higher percentage than really anywhere in the Metroplex, because of all of the attention coming here. The new density, the new apartments coming in are highly successful. They're achieving rents that were not available 3 years ago, certainly not 10 years ago.
Catalyst Site 1, which is located on the southeast corner of I-820 and Beach Street, is planned for multifamily alongside available retail and office spaces.
72-acre business park that's coming in. It's going to bring a lot of jobs in. We have some high-tech industry that's moved into the corridor. Somewhere around 2,000 to 3,000 jobs just right there in that corridor.
Catalyst Site 2 and 3 is located on the southwest corridor of Interstate 820 and Anderson Boulevard and is planned for industrial development.
So the status of the property is that it is under construction. We're grading all sites. We were just out there this morning. And Site D, which is our southwest most site, pad is built, but there's a tremendous amount of dirt that's moving around the property right now.
Catalyst Site 4 and 5, located on the south side of I-820 between the northeast corridor and northwest corridor of Halton Road, is poised to serve as the regional gateway of the Northern Cross District.
I think the value proposition for customers, it's opportunity. Proximity to 820-35 interchange, proximity to all the employment that's in that area already.
Catalyst Site 6, which is located on the southwest corridor of I-820 and Old Denton Road, is part of a planned development that includes 2 5,000 square foot pad sites and a 4-story hotel. Catalyst Site 7 is located on the northwest corner of Old Denton Drive and Halton Road and is owned by the EDC.
The High Point Apartments, our first phase community, it's actually called The Stream at High Point. We're started construction this week, actually Monday, where we're going to be doing the site work and preparing the development for the first phase. It's 286 units. We think it'll house about 500 to 550 people. And this is really going to help the commercial development on the 820 frontage as we're bringing bodies and we're bringing the highest end single family homes to the Northern Cross area.
Catalyst Site 9 is located on the northeast corner of I-820 and Beach Street. This 25-acre site will offer numerous retail opportunities for the northern corridor of I-820.
New retail uses, a new grocery store, restaurant row that we envision up and down 820 will all be fantastic because of this connectivity that has not only with the Tex Express, but also the future rail that's coming on the east side of Haltom City.
In the event that anyone is interested in developing in that corridor, they just have to contact me or the Deputy City Manager, which her name is Sedona Faust, and we'd be more than happy to assist and walk you through that process.
Well, anyone have a question for him?
So what we'd like for you to do is, if the mayor is going to keep an eye on the council members. So when you get ready to talk, if you just raise your hand, he will call you out. And in the same way with the EDC, and Councilman Brown will be watching for the EDC members.
Susan, go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, well, I have several questions. So you want me to just do one and then give everybody else a chance?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so who all will this brochure go to, and who all will the video go to, and are they the same people, and will Catalyst distribute this?
Great question. The brochure and the video could essentially go to the same audience, but the video would be easy to distribute, and we could certainly help the city and the EDC do that. I would probably, use the brochure. I would, you might be able to send the brochure out electronically since you have a soft copy. But since it's really better format for a hard copy, I would probably reserve some copies at the EDC office and probably use the rest to maybe mail out to very specific targets that you might be working with. The video you could email out in a lot broader format. But again, when you're using print and hard copy, I think you want to be selective of that.
Okay, is that our city hall that would be doing this, or would Catalyst be sending this out?
We certainly could help you send out the video to some folks on our database, and I would assume that you can send the video out again or post this on your website and make it accessible not only to the stakeholders but also prospects as well. Yeah, we don't have plans to email or mail the brochure out at this point, but I could certainly talk to Rex and we could gather up an audience and figure out how to get that distributed.
Okay. And then can we, and this may be a question to the EDC and the city manager, but can we as council members personally reach out to businesses, desired businesses for, inviting them to come to our area? Is there any thing prohibiting us to do that, or is it smarter for us to reserve that for specific entities?
I can answer the question, and I think Rex, maybe you follow up. I think it's always appropriate and recommended that council members continue to be advocate and EDC members to be advocates. I think it's clear. It just needs to be clear what the messaging is, and make sure that you've got alignment on the vision. But I would say if you stimulate interest or generate a warm lead, I would, ideally, let Rex or maybe one of the development owners or their brokers maybe work with those leads at that point in time.
Yeah, I can follow up with that. I think that we'd welcome any type of hold on, my screen went out on me.
And
we would welcome any leads we can get, and certainly council members or EDC members are a part of that. We'll make sure that you have the brochure or the video copy, whatever you need to do that, and we'll run down any possible lead. And Trent is there to help us as well.
Okay.
Wayne, is any conflict of interest in there or no?
In what regard are you asking if there's a conflict?
I mean, what Susan asked, Susan question.
Yeah, is there a problem? Is there a legal issue with me as a council member reaching out to businesses? Say there's a business in McKinney that I think would be great for us called the Harvest Restaurant. So would there be a problem with me reaching out to them and saying, hey, there's nobody else like this in our area. I think the business would do well in our city. Is there a problem with me personally doing that as a council member?
Well, I think as a council member, it's actually a very good idea for you and
Okay.
other council members to try to market these properties and encourage businesses to come. Where you potentially could have issues is if you are directly financially involved with a particular business, then at that point in time, you as a council member would not be allowed to vote on the matter or participate in the matter. But as far as bringing them to the city,
sure,
for discussions on whether or not there might be some development potential, that's a great idea.
Yeah. I would say we've ran into circumstances where if the mayor or manager or council member becomes too involved, it makes it a little bit harder when you're making decisions from the dais. So in our experience, promotion and being an advocate for the city is never a bad thing if you come up with warm leads. But once you sort of develop the lead or the interest, it would be good to turn that over to Rex or somebody internally at the city to maybe work that, so that again when that use comes forward, you're not stuck in the middle of that, since you've been involved maybe for the whole duration. So we've seen some circumstances where maybe council stayed in too long for whatever reason, but certainly in terms of advocacy and promotion, I would encourage everybody to do that.
Susan, is okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Van Zandt.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions here. Jason, how do you feel like our performance is measuring up, and who do you think is our biggest competitors for getting this market?
I think, from a retail standpoint, I think, obviously Alliance has gotten a pretty large market share in North Fort Worth in terms of retail. And then, Hearst with the mall, I mean, that's been there for quite a while, but that obviously absorbs, quite a bit of interest. On the other hand, I think in terms of employment, you guys have done a really good job, and your fair share of garnering a bigger piece of the pie, from a per capita standpoint. The urban residential, I think, you've been moderately, improving urban residential, and I think that's smart. I think, too much of any one thing is never a good thing. And then in office, I think there's an opportunity there. I think the location makes sense for corporate office if that's something that we could get some interest from a developer or an outside party in. That's probably an area that you're maybe deficient in. But really, office requires a lot of amenities to be competitive, and this area historically hasn't offered a ton of amenities that would cater to corporate users. But I think you could certainly lean in to make yourselves more competitive from an office standpoint.
Okay, on slide 13, and those around it, there's always a gray building in the middle of the developments. Can you tell me what that building is that is not identified?
I'm not sure which slide 13 refers to.
Hey, Gay, it's Brent. That's the, I believe that's the existing storage building unit that's there.
The Aloha storage? You think
so.
that's it? Okay.
One of those two.
Okay, then what returns do you think that we can realistically expect to see from this? I realize other than COVID, how that's affected us and, setting back things, no one could have foreseen this. And let me just say, I think this is beautiful. I'm so encouraged by the brochure and your presentation. But do you feel like our returns are realistically, like we're going to expect to see these within a year?
Yeah, I think it depends on the product type. We've had and still continue to have substantial interest from developers that would be interested in building urban residential on the site. We've had conversations with some groups that might be interested in developing some flex product or kind of nuanced residential. We haven't had any strong conversations yet with any office developers that have really stepped up. We're in the process and have reached out to all the major grocery stores. We've gotten some feedback from some on the timing's not good, or the proximity to other locations is maybe not advantageous for us. But we've had some concepts that said, we're going to take a second look at this and maybe a little time. So I would say there's never a bad time to market. And I think we've got more information now regarding the site and the market viability, and I think alignment, hopefully. I think the majority of the people on council and EDC, have gotten buy-in because we've developed this with you guys. And so I think all of those things, removing political risk, underwriting it correctly so that it's fact-based, and then having, I would say, really a first-class tool and information to be able to promote it is far exceeds what I see most people utilizing. So I think that'll also give you a leg up.
Good. My last comment, or I don't know if it's a comment or a question, I am concerned and this may be something you can't answer, but what percentage do you think will be industrial? Will we have more interest from industrial? And do we need that first to bring retail? Or will we have the retail? I'm concerned about our consumers locally, our citizens having the retail.
Retail is going to be tough right now. Retail was going to be harder a month ago or 2 months ago, just because there's so much competition in the area, and there's, and it would take a little bit longer to develop the vision and coalesce those users. Right now, the majority of the users that we would probably prefer to reach out to are closed and under duress. So it'll take a little while if that's a use or desire that the city has for that to come back. And so I think that would be maybe the hardest. office as well as while everybody's displaced, there's going to be a shakeup in office and how we work again. May be different depending on how COVID affects us, rolling going forward in the work environment. And there may need to be some time to figure out, how to reorganize, what an office environment needs to look like in order to cater kind of the next generation, workforce and the space. We do know that there's demand for industrial. That's a segment that's anticipated to be very resilient through this. And certainly, residential is another use that should be fairly resilient. It will be impacted, but maybe not as much as some of the other asset classes.
Could I add to Jason what he just said? So when we were looking at this, there was two things that are a strong interest up there, and that's always been industrial. And then, of course, is multifamily. Now, in the past, we were a little bit resistant on multifamily, but if it's the right kind of multifamily, the kind of luxury type product that holds its value, it brings the density that you need, and it still leaves plenty of property for developing, because two things got to happen for that retail to come in, which you understand, or you wouldn't have asked the question, and that is, you got to have money up there. You got to have people either coming there to go to work, or you got to have people living there, a nighttime and daytime influx. So we have the 72-acre business park that's still going strong, and there's it's a very restrictive light industrial with some distribution centers, but it also has retail elements as well. So that's going to go in up there. We haven't heard anything different. We hear that Lockheed is going to be moving into the old Motorola building right there. We have the new high-tech industry with Collins Aerospace. So we've got some jobs up there. We have industrial up there. We have new industrial coming. We have Barnes development. In the end will be about 815 units. Then we have the two neighborhoods on both sides, the single family on both sides of the corridor, Our Country Homes, with a very nice product, be 400 homes. And then the 225 homes at High Point, just on the north side of 820. So I don't know that, we ought to be resistant. We ought to just make sure it's the right type of multifamily. But I think that we're doing pretty well on the industrial. And then I do believe the retail and the kind of things that we want for our citizens will certainly fill in once that influx of daytime and nighttime money is there.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Rex.
Yeah, I believe Council Saul, go ahead, ma'am. Susan?
Yes, I had a couple more questions. A couple were just definitions, and then an additional question. What amenities are you referring to for office? You said something about us offering amenities for office space. What were you referring to there?
Yeah, so office would, today's environment, and you could still build a standalone office building, and maybe we consider, a user-driven building, but an office would expect to be in an area that included more mixed use and maybe more walkability.
Okay.
And that environment doesn't exist.
But it could.
It could. I think one area that's being explored, and again, their business plan is constantly sort of evolving, and I think they're very open-minded. But Mercantile is large enough and unified enough where I could see them developing some office, maybe in a mixed-use environment, and creating kind of that amenity package that might foster that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then I had a couple of terms you used that I was not quite sure what you meant by that. One was, did you say structured garage?
Structured garage is really just a parking garage.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then the other was pickleball courts. Is that what you said? Did I understand that right?
Pickleball is interesting. I found out my in-laws were actually playing pickleball, and I've never heard of it before. But essentially, you can get two courts on half of a tennis court. but it's become wildly popular. But first through maybe the retirees or the older generation, but now they've created entertainment venues around pickleball, and it's taken off, and it's something that's very fun. I flew to Kansas City and had to check it out myself, and was really pleased. So it's just another entertainment venue that's wrapped around pickleball instead of where Top Golf is maybe oriented around golf, but very similar experience. A lot of fun. I recommend it.
Thank you. I'd never heard of that.
It's just my RFU, this is a joint meeting between EDC and City Council, and any EDC board member, or the chairman, and you need to join this. If you have any question, at this moment is the time for you to ask a question. And if I don't see none, I think Patty want to say something?
Well, I got a question. So is this the
go ahead.
The launch of the I guess the marketing of that Northern Cross?
Yeah, we've been working on, I guess, more or less visioning and some concepts for the EDC, but we also wanted to wrap in kind of a branding initiative for the entire district. And I think, the timing, if you guys are good, and I think Rex has provided a couple of comments, a couple of minor comments that we've addressed, but I think we wouldn't be hesitant to maybe start doing some distribution and branding and marketing this. I think the timing would be good for that.
Yeah, I like the whole putting everything under the Northern Cross umbrella. The EDC property, but the mercantile and everybody else, and having I guess a unified vision for that area. I think that's something that's been lacking for a long time. Yeah, we definitely need a press release and let people know that we have it out here, and maybe a website to help market the property, so that they can come to the website, look at the I guess basically put the brochure on the website.
Okay. Any more question, Walter? No?
No. Thank you.
Council Evans then?
Yes. So is the brochure still open to changes for the pictures that are on there?
We've made a few changes. We've updated some of the changes. There's a soft copy that's been updated. We've got one minor text amendment that we're going to make. But if there's something specific, I would say, if you want to address any comments or suggestions to Rex, and we can figure out how to address those.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? I didn't hear nothing from Mary Ann Hillier. Usually you have questions. At this time, I would like to welcome Darren Hudson and Gary Proctor. Hi to both of you. You hear me, Gary? Ms. Hudson, you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Just say
Thank
welcome you to the meeting.
Thank you.
If you don't have any question, Greg, or
I think Trent might have wanted to say something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I do. And first of all, thank you. I got on this meeting after a 5.5 hour Tarrant County Hospital District Board meeting today. You can imagine how that went. We're in a situation where we got two decisions to make. This is either going to be a calamity that kills us, or this is an opportunity we're going to take advantage of better than everybody else. And honestly, I think I want to salute the work that Rex and Jason have done here, because as Walter said, we have never had a unified document or a unified video of any kind to hand out to prospects. And it's not uncommon for Rex to call me on a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock and said, hey, the Dallas Chamber of Commerce just called me in on Tuesday morning at 8. We have to have a proposal ready for a 400 employee user that's going to invest $60 million, and we got to have a presentation for them. And so we scramble all weekend and we get presentations out, but we've never had anything like this to go on. So I think today is kind of a culmination of all of your work for the past many years. And I want to say this was a very smart thing to do, and thank you for doing it, because it's been a long time coming. This really kind of brings together all the work that was done years ago on TERS number 1, where we took such a beating over it, but it resulted in the Stephen Barnes property and the single family development and very high end, stream property he's developing now. And you continue to focus on that with these properties that you own. And I think now you've got the right marketing piece and the right thought process about making sure that this works. Now we got to wait for the market to come to us a little bit, because we're going to have a hiccup, and we all know that, but it's not permanent. It's going to go away. And when it goes away, at the end of World War II, most economists predicted that there would be a huge depression. We would go back to 1931, because all of the entire country had mobilized to create war implements. And the fear was, well, all this loss of jobs is just going to kill the country. Well, the exact opposite happened, because those jobs that had been mobilized to create the war effort previously were jobs that were being used to produce consumer items that we stopped producing. And so the pent up demand for all of that effort just unloaded on this country after World War II. And we saw, phenomenal gains. Well, this is not World War II, but this is the largest health crisis this country has ever faced, bar none. It may be akin to 2008 when it comes to economic impact. And we're going to have to prepare ourselves for some very, very difficult times ahead. The state is already talking about mandatory property tax reductions next year, which would basically mean we're going to see dramatic decreases in ad valorem values on top of static values that we're already being told to expect. We could see 10 to 12, 15% unemployment rates. A lot of the people that you know and that I know, my own kids, have lost jobs in the past 3 months. We're all going to be incredibly impacted by this. I'd like to challenge us to say, okay, we can check the box now on Northern Cross, and let's keep working and keep empowering staff to do everything we can to keep that growing. But let's start looking at the rest of Haltom City, and let's start talking about the other areas that really need the same level of focus and care that's gone into Northern Cross. I drive down Denton Highway 377 a lot, and I see that area, and I see what's happening to us now in terms of retail. And I see the number of retail closures that are probably not coming back at all, on top of areas that were already vacant. And I want us to be thinking about what our next steps are going to be and where our next focal points are going to be. And honestly, I think that 377 corridor should be a focal point, because as you drive down there, you see a lot of redevelopment opportunities. And Jason mentioned the amenities. Susan, you asked this question, what do the amenities look like? Well, the amenities look like creating destination places out of valued property that's undervalued today. And we got a lot of undervalued property right there on 377. And it's described by vacancies, continued vacancies. Well, the bad news about that is we've had to look at some ugly stuff for a while. But the good news is those property values are going to start dropping. And that means now the market catches up with them quicker. And if we're ready to take advantage of that time and that place, we have the ability to start creating something special in that and other areas of town. The same argument could be made about Belknap. So I think this is phase one. Check the box. Great job. Go to work. Get these things moving. Let's bring in as much potential development as we can. But let's also start thinking about the future. We just finished a project in Watauga that was, I couldn't have timed it any more perfectly. It was by nothing but providence that this occurred. But they began to see some significant retail loss on 377 in Watauga, and they began to see some pretty significant users, emptying buildings. So we took that area and we said, okay, let's rethink the uses along that corridor. Let's not assume that there's going to be another big box user to take the place of the big box user that's ending. And now we're going to see those big box users decline even faster. And so our thought was, let's take those on an incremental basis and let's sort of re-envision those properties and create mixed use zones within that 377 area that don't include the 100,000 square foot anchored Target with 400 spaces out front and a gigantic big parking lot. Let's talk about what the market is wanting to see in those areas instead. And we came up with a new project called Retail Transitional Mixed Use. And what it allows to happen is, and I ran this by several developers before I did it. I said, help me understand what the market's going to need. Help us understand what we need to be doing as a city, because we're nervous that as these retail closures continue, we're going to be sitting there with sales tax loss and property tax value loss. And it's going to be pretty devastating if we don't do something about it. And our solution was that retail transitional mixed use area. So we created literally an element of the comprehensive plan where we took that strip off the comp plan and we said, we're going to redo that strip on the comp plan using economic development sound practices and what the market is doing now. And I've already had calls from 2 developers saying, hey, I need to know a lot more about that, because that's an area I would love to be in. And frankly, there's 2 or 3 vacancies out there that if I knew the city was going to be supportive of it, I would buy them today and come in with a plan. Well, this gave them a plan, a route, a mechanism to begin doing that. So I would say, just in summary, this is a great project. I hope everybody gets just as aggressive now about some of these other areas in Haltom City that represent the same kind of potential, where we've got a great employee base. And the good news is, you're not characterized by a huge retail employment base. So count your blessings on that. You've got a good, solid industrial employment base that we can grow with. And you've got some areas in the community that are just screaming to be redeveloped. I would like for us to have plans in place to redevelop those properties aggressively, so that we've already got the entitlement piece out of the way and we're ready, to act on it when these opportunities become something besides calamities.
Thank you, Troy. And any more questions from anyone? Go ahead, Councilor Saul.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, my question is, some of those vacant properties are dilapidated a little bit. So how do you think an investor will be interested in coming in and revamping the buildings that you're talking about? Or can you go into a little bit more? I don't want to prolong the meeting that much more, but I just wanted to know what your ideas are for an existing building and how, somebody might be able to come in and, do they bulldoze the buildings or can they dress them up?
Yeah, great question, Susan. The answer in many cases is bulldoze. I'll be honest with you, the answer in many cases is bulldoze. But
Okay.
There's also the opportunities to take some of those buildings and repurpose them. We're doing the numbers on the special tax district that is repurposing the mall in Plano, and it's becoming a gigantic mixed use district with a significant amount of retail, hotel, residential, and they've even got a huge grant from COG to help do that. So I don't want to throw out the possibility of repurposing some buildings that do have some usefulness, but we almost have to look at them through a completely different mind's eye. And if the best thing to do is bulldoze it, we need to let developers bulldoze it and
I
put
agree.
something up that works.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Brown, Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. Trent, what do you think? And I have been hearing some of the stuff you mentioned, the governor. I hope that he's going to make some of these decisions pretty quickly, because as you know, we're about to head into our budget building time and tax rate time. And you mentioned something else, these older buildings going down in value on the ad valorem tax rate. Man, what do we do on building our our budget this year? And I hope the governor acts quick and gives us some direction of where we can go as far as building our budget, setting our tax rate.
Yeah, great question, Ricky. And Rex and I have corresponded on this. I've talked to many other city managers about it. The bottom line is we're gonna this next budget cycle is gonna look a whole lot like the budget cycle in 2009 that we had to go through, and we're just gonna have to bite the bullet. We're gonna see significant reductions in revenue. There's no good thing to say about what's happening in terms of those budgets, because we're hit with the cap, and now we're also potentially going to be hit with even additional reductions in property value, so property taxes. So What do we do? I'll tell you what we don't do. We can't go out there and offer significant financial incentives to companies to come to Haltom City. We can't say, here's $300,000, go make your deal happen. But what we can do is identify the properties, make a plan, clear the entitlement path and the development path so that when private investment wants to come in and invest equity in our community, we've cleared the hurdles as best we possibly can, because we can't overcome the financial elements of this thing with giving out cash. We just can't, because we're going to see cuts in service. We're going to see cuts in every aspect of what we do. So it's a very different mindset. But if you go back and think of what we had to do in 2009 to survive, 2009, 2010, that's what we're going to have to do again. And it could be a 2 or 3 year phase.
Thank you, Trent.
Any more questions? If you don't, I go ahead, turn to Rex. You have the final conclusion of the meeting here and what you thought and what you think come out from all the question and answer from Jason and Trent and council member. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, well, what we'll do from this point is that I want you, all of you guys, to think about this. Shoot me an email or give me a call, whatever it is, whether it's the packet, the pamphlet, the video, whatever it is. Just give me your thoughts and your ideas on that. I will be meeting with Jason and Trent and staff moving forward. And I've already been meeting with both of them. Jason on the 820 corridor, Trent on some of the other areas in town that he's talked about tonight. And so we'll be coming in front of EDC and or council in the future of some of these other areas, some of the ideas. He just touched on them tonight, but we'll get more specific on certain areas as we go forward. But it'll be very important for Trent and I to meet with my community development staff. Because they've got to be involved in this and they've got to understand what we're doing. It's going to change some of our procedures and processes for sure. So with that, that's what we'll do from this point. This tonight wasn't about voting or making decisions. It was just about being informed and seeing the work that Jason's put together and talk about some of the work that we will work with Trent in the future on. And we'll just go from there.
I mean, at this time, you know, I've been in council member almost 7 years over. And I talked to Rex of Keyland before about we need to revise the new ordinance for southern of Haltom City because we have a lot of existing building. I mean, I wish, like Trent said, you know, if we can bulldoze the old building to make a new one, that would be the best, but that's not the case. But right now, we just pray for the corona, you know, go away and we move forward. Unfortunately, nothing we can do at this time. But so far, you know, meeting tonight, I really pleased with it. And thank you, Rex and Sidon. I've been here all the time. And we work together with the council at home. And I know together we will get through this. And before adjourn the meeting, I would like the Chairman Ricky Proud go ahead adjourn your EDC meeting now.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At this time, I guess it's time we'll adjourn the EDC meeting.
Okay, and as the mayor and this is joint meeting, I go ahead adjourn the joint meeting at 7:29 and see all of you on Monday. And before leaving, I just say thank you to IT, done a good job. I thought the meeting tonight we have a problem, but actually went so well, right? You had a good.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Take care.
Have a good night.
Council.
Good night, everyone.